County Finance Committee budget hearing. County manager sent out some revisions earlier in the week, and then he sent out another one here that I'm just seeing now. And so the conversation earlier today, I'm going to pass it directly to Jim and let him kind of give us an update on what these numbers look like.
Well, would you like to do the approval of the January 27th minutes first?
I would. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made. A second?
Second.
A second, Karen. Any discussion on the motion?
Just want to clarify that this is the second version of the minutes that was sent out that we're voting on.
Yes,
Okay.
second revision. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now we can get started.
I believe if, because of vote in a hybrid setting, we need to do a roll call. I just thought of that. My apologies.
Okay.
So I'll, if it's all
I
right.
was looking at the hands on the screen.
And I was writing, so I didn't catch it. Let's go Tim Thompson,
Aye.
Connie Justice, John Anderson,
Yes.
Karen Ornstein,
Karen Ornstein, yes.
and Bob Vale.
Yes.
Show the vote 5-0 with Sarah and Ben absent. All right, we're now ready to move on, Bob.
Okay. All yours.
All right, well, thank you, and my apologies for getting this out. We did post to the agenda the overall budget impact that we'll be proposing for you this evening. That is the first page of the packet, and working down through this document, and which breaks out the county, the jail, and the cross-insurance arena budgets. We are looking at a proposal as it stands today of 13.88%. And I'd just like to take a few minutes. These items will be uploaded to the county website tomorrow morning. We were at the last minute putting this all together, and so we will make sure that it gets attached to the agenda first thing. But I wanted to, as being a committee member on many committees myself, I know receiving documents at the last minute is always an irritating thing to have, because you really don't have a lot of time to digest it. But I just want to take a few minutes now and just walk through the documents. I don't think there's a lot that we'll dive into the weeds on, but I think it's more informational on where we stand today versus where we were in November when the commissioners approved the proposed budget and remanded it to the Finance Committee. And so the first page, I just want to go over it. It has a breakdown of expenditures, revenues, and then tax stabilization reserve. I just wanted to show the difference between what the general fund budget looked like for expenditures versus what the general fund budget looks like today. We have gone over the last number of months on fine-tuning this budget as best we could. We've also received that we've had some costs that have popped up that we've had to bake into the budget. One of the items more recently, just within the last week, was notice from our representative from Munis that they were pushing everyone to a cloud-based service versus having it on their server. And that, for the county, is going to be a $55,000 upcharge, so that we would be no longer paying about $57,000, we'd be up in the $120,000, $130,000. So things like that we had to account for in this budget. So it kind of brought in a last-minute large expenditure that we weren't anticipating. And you know, the good side of it is that we got it before we had this meeting, before the commissioners approved the budget, but we still had to react very fast on trying to cover that cost. But in the end, the general fund budget from November to February, we were able to shave off just over $46,000 more. A little different story on the jail budget, as we've been talking a lot around the jail revenue and the loss of that revenue, and we felt, and we had talked to the Finance Committee, that we really needed to refine this budget and make sure what was in this budget is what we need to have to run the jail next year. And I say that is because sometimes in the past years, we've had the federal revenue, and the federal revenue always seemed to exceed the budgeted appropriation for revenue. It took care of itself on the back end. Without having the federal revenue now, we won't have that luxury of covering some overages in the jail with increased revenues over what we budgeted. So we're kind of at a turning point here with the jail budget that we really have to nail down a lot of the expenditures on what we feel as though we need to move forward on. That changed. From November to February, the jail budget has gone up $293,000. Jumping down to revenues, we constantly look at how our revenues are trending, and we always want to adjust those up if we have the ability to. Unfortunately, under the general fund, the revenues have not changed. We feel as though those were pretty solid back in November, and they still are the same today. So we're unable to move those up or down. The jail revenues, those are a different story. As we all know, the jail revenues from November to February have decreased by just over $3.3 million, which is really the attributor to going from a 5% tax rate to a 13% tax rate. And then on the tax stabilization reserve, we had brought forth in November that we would put $200,000 into the budget, the general fund budget. At that time, we did not have any allocation to the jail fund. However, in February, we're proposing, again, to have the $200,000 for the general fund, but we're proposing $200,000 for the jail fund. This number has been a moving target over the last month and a half, as we kind of started higher, but as we have come to the realization of, one, maybe falling short this year and needing to dip into the fund balance to cover this year's costs, on top of not generating any more surplus in the revenue line of the jail, we feel as though we can't dip into the number that we thought we were once going to be able to dip into. And so we've kind of peeled that back. And so this would be a $200,000 item in the jail fund out of the unassigned fund balance. It would ultimately be a $300,000 carve-out, because we would go at $200,000 this year, step it down next year at $100,000, and then hopefully the third year budget, we would get back to zero, so that when the jail budget is not dependent upon the tax stabilization reserve. Let's hope that all works out the way we plan it.
Can I ask a question as we go, or should I wait to the end?
Feel free.
Okay. How does the failure of ICE to pay about $1.1 million that it owes us since September play into this?
That is a item that, one, I should update everyone. A lot of movement today on the ICE revenue. Teresa has been on the phone a couple of times and bouncing emails back and forth to a DHS representative, where they have, I think, the line that I liked in the email was, what's going on in Maine? Because we've been told to pay attention to Maine. And so they're paying attention to us, and I believe we are now out of the 5 or 6 invoices out that need to be covered by DHS. 4 of them have been allocated for payment, correct?
And they're saying payment is 7 to 10 days, so.
So we have some very positive movement in that. And so, we thank the delegation, Senator King, Senator Collins, and Representative Pingree have all helped to kind of move the needle there, and I think that's working.
So that's great news. My question is, how does that impact the budget? Because we weren't expecting to have those funds necessarily, but at least some of them seem to be coming through, and you'll know before you vote whether we've got them in hand.
We will look whether we may budget. We budgeted this year, I believe, 2.3 million in federal revenues between the marshals and the ICE inmates. And if we may budget, we should be okay on the revenue side per expenditures. We will be out 5 months worth of ICE revenue going in. So anything that was in addition, in a sense, that would fall out to surplus at the end of the year would not be in existence.
It doesn't affect this budget, like
But it doesn't
yearly.
affect this budget we're working on, it's affecting this year's budget to June 30th.
It doesn't put more money into an account that's available for stabilization, for example.
Not at this time, no.
Thank you.
If we had gone the full cycle, I would have a different answer. If ICE was here until June 30th. But they're not.
Does the state have any input on this for the rest of the counties and their jails? Are we unique in this position?
We're unique in this position as there are a few jails that have ICE inmates and other federal inmates. They're reporting that they're not having any issues on getting payments. They don't have the magnitude of the invoices that we do, but there's been no reports that they're having issues. One thing that the supplemental budget that was just passed by the legislature had no appropriations in it this year for county budgets. So that's going to be a significant loss, and that's one of the things that they won't carry over. That's we're receiving this year is medically assisted treatment funds. That was an allocation of $4 million in the last session. The county received about $783,000 of that $4 million to run our MAP program at the jail, and that looks like it's going to be a one-time revenue.
Jim, the new 200,000 that's going into the jail fund, is that funds raised from taxation going into a reserve account?
That is actually past year's surplus that has gone into an unassigned fund balance. And we'll be taking that 200,000 out of the unassigned fund balance for the jail.
What's the remainder in the unassigned fund balance?
Excuse me, I didn't hear the first part of that, John.
What's the remainder in the unassigned fund balance? You guys are electing to put in 293,000, right? So what's left in there?
Out of the jail, that fund balance right now is about 2.3 million. We would be taking 300,000 of that to cover, what we do is we move it into a reserve account, so we can cover the 200,000 that's in the FY '27 budget, and then the FY '28 budget would take the remaining 100,000 and plug it in there to step it down. On the back of this sheet, this was a exercise that staff went through last week in trying to see if we can pare down the budgets and get that tax rate as low as possible. And I just wanted to kind of put it on a sheet just to show you what we did in terms of dollar change. We tried to hit as many departments as we could. Just some departments were just so skinny that there wasn't a lot of meat. But those larger departments that have the larger budgets tended to have a few more cuts across them.
Jim, am I reading this correctly, that the Registry of Deeds that had that clerk position that had been frozen and carried over as a frozen position, that position's now being taken out of the budget?
It has.
Okay. It will no longer be one of our recommendations, since we did that.
No, I heard you loud and clear.
Okay.
And it really changed the course when we had that $55,000 munis. We had to really cover that. I brought, as the top part of this sheet is expenditure decreases per department. The bottom half is expenditure increases per department, as this has been a budget that's been pretty fluid over the last couple of months. And so, like I said, the finance office has the Munis cloud base at 55,000. We had a couple of items that we had found over the last couple of months that were relying on being funded with the surplus at the end of the year. It wasn't really being budgeted. And as our budgets are getting so tight, we can't rely on that surplus to cover it. One of them was employee recognition, covering the cost of that. It's very important to have events, or we have our event in March for employee recognition, but the committee does a lot of work throughout the year. And so we found that we were about $10,000 shy on funding that. Public health on the professional service side, that was something that was falling out to the surplus at the end of the year, and that really goes into the increase in interpreter services that we have seen over the last number of years. And it's becoming very costly, both per hour cost and the amount that's being used. And then the last item was the miscellaneous account, which is the main pretrial contract that we have and the work that we do for ankle monitors and other type of monitors. I believe this money is more in the realm of domestic violence related and providing victims monitors with this funds. So those bottom three were three that we found through the last 2 or 3 months that were not falling into any line item, and we really needed to bring it in. One of the early discussions that we had, I think it was actually meeting one, was a lot of questions between a document that was on the front side of our budget versus which was a position per department document, and then each budget had a position in a sense box that talked about what positions they have, how many, what are the job descriptions. What we did was we spent some time really analyzing that first document and making it iron tight, as we felt as though the budget will look a little different next year because we will be transitioning into a budget software and going away from the 82-page Excel spreadsheet that we currently put the budget through on an annual basis. And so we probably will no longer have that same format, and so we will be reliant solely on this document here for the budget book. We wanted to make sure that the committee, since you raised some questions around it, we delivered it and informed you that we paid some attention to it and made it iron tight.
Jim, if I'm reading this correct here, we have a tobacco team lead, a tobacco prevention specialist, and treatment specialist. That's 3 positions, or is that one person with 3 job titles?
That is 3 positions. And that is fully funded through a grant, through DHHS. The state tobacco money funds those 3 positions.
So we wouldn't cut that position because it's
It would have no bearing on the tax rate.
right.
The majority of the positions in public health have no bearing on the tax rate.
They're funded elsewhere.
Then lastly, what I did, and I thought it would be beneficial for the committee, is from November to just last week, we have been working on this budget to try to cull it down a little bit because we knew of the revenue issue that we were gonna have, but also we had some increases that we needed to fund. And so I created this document over the last couple of days, just highlighting the departments that had the changes. And if the highlight is orange, it means that line went down since November. So there's a difference between the November, the budget, and the February budget, which you see in front of you. Orange means the line went down. Green means that the line went up. Some of the green did not come out, so if you see kind of like a hazy box over the numbers, that should be green. Some pages, the green came through perfectly, some, it was a little faded. And I tried to use a couple of photocopiers to try to get the best copy for distribution. This is the best I could do. But just quickly going through, emergency management. We brought that, training, education, and seminars down $3,000 from the initial budget. That was first view by the committee back in December. Under the district attorney, we looked at their history and what they were proposing, and we brought that seasonal, temporary, and interns line down slightly, about $3,000. In addition, we looked at witness fees and expenses for the DA, and that was trending a little lower than what we were budgeting, so we brought that down $2,000. The district attorney is looking to phase in individuals paying, if they have the ability to pay, something towards restorative justice. And so that will be a revenue that would offset the expenditure line here. And so we felt as though we could reduce this expenditure line at least $5,000 down. Jumping over to the executive office. As much as we have the fire EMS bringing up that budget, because we need to allocate some funds for their operations, I felt as though we could take $5,000 out of the professional service line. Skipping over the human resources. Human resources, we consolidated a little bit of their lines under professional services and put it towards the employee advisory committee, which is the employee recognition. That was brought in under 25, but the total line for professional services went up just over $3,000. In the sheriff's office, I'm gonna pause just to see if there's any questions. Any questions online? Okay, seeing them. In the sheriff's office, under the admin side of their budget, under transportation and lodging, we reduced that by $2,500. Under training, education, and seminars, we reduced that by $2,000.
Jim?
Yes.
I assume that, like our towns, whenever possible, your folks are looking for grants for training?
Yes, that typically the departments that would be more inclined to get those type of grants would be the sheriff's office. A lot of the other departments, I don't think there's a lot of grant opportunities, maybe public health, EMA. The other item I had, I've highlighted it, but there has been no movement, so if that's my fault, I must have been reading the other column. I had the telephone communication highlighted as it went down, but it did not go down, so my mistake there. Getting into Sheriff's Office law enforcement. Transportation and lodging went down $1,000. Gas, oil, and grease. Looking at history and also what we're seeing for oil prices in today's time, we brought that down $5,000. Under training, education, and seminars, we brought that down $3,500.
We have our own mechanics.
We do, we have two.
Yes. They primarily just service police cars.
That's the bulk of their work, yes. We have a few departments that have vehicles for part of their fleet, but the bulk of the fleet services is mostly cruises or jail.
Is there any way to buy an extended warranty to offset that, or has that ever been looked at? Or if you buy a new car, presumably you get 100,000 miles of some kind of service?
We do have a warranty. It doesn't go, 3 years, 5 years. It's mostly a year or a certain mile. And we quickly liquidate those warranties pretty fast because of the mileage the deputies put on the vehicles. And then lastly, in the law enforcement, the VIPs, that has not been an account that's been used all that often. I took $1,000 off of that.
What is that, what? VIPS stands for?
VIPs, it's the volunteer group that's affiliated with the sheriff's office. They do a lot of work within the county. In particular, if there's an event going on, they can be there to serve as coordination for parking or other items related to the sheriff's office.
So that's for supplies that they might need to assist?
Yes, but they are also their own separate 501c3, so they raise their own money. And it seems as though that's been the direction that they've been spending their money on versus using this money. Under the jail, probably the greatest activity of different lines being adjusted. We looked at the wage and salaries and to make sure that we were falling in line there. We adjusted that slightly, even though it does show that the 26-27 budget on the left column is the same. I think that was moved up about $250,000, which then adjusted retirement, Social Security down below. Transportation and lodging, we removed $4,500 out of that line. Skipping a page over to training and education seminars. We brought that down over the last couple of months, $15,000. Electrical repair, that was brought down $10,000. Again, I did it again, the telephone communication, I don't know why I highlighted that, that was my bad again. Electricity, utility, we brought that up $5,000. Gas utility, brought it up $15,000. Sewer utility, we brought that up $20,000. A lot of the historical numbers for the past year are a little skewed on the utilities because we had construction going on at the jail and the the contractors were tapping into our services. That construction lasted 8 or 9 months. So a lot of if you're looking at the FY '25 end of year, that's why you're seeing there's a little bit of difference there. So we're adjusting for that, no longer having construction down at the jail. Fuel oil, brought that down $1,000. Food and groceries, we brought that down $125,000, and that was largely because our inmate population, because of not having ice in the building, we felt that was 3 less meals times 80 that we needed to pay for per week, per day. Non-food items was brought up $5,000. And then I previously mentioned the pretrial expenses, which I called miscellaneous on the other sheet. That was brought up just over $20,000, $24,000 to accommodate what we've been spending over the last number of years. And then computer hardware was brought down $6,000. So those were the pluses and minuses in the jail budget.
Is the sheriff's app? Is that why it was taken out?
It might, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Both in the sheriff's office admin and the jail, the sheriff up until about 2 weeks ago, we had an app for your phone or your iPad that you could have, and he wanted to push that out to bring better customer service out to people who are looking to learn about the jail or the sheriff's office. It would have a variety of different modules in it, anywhere from learning about the sheriff's office and the jail to looking up inmates or how to touch base with inmates or how to submit commissary money for inmates. So it was an app that I believe it was $15,000 that was in the sheriff's admin budget, and it was $25,000 in the jail budget. And we removed it. We'll look at it another year. Thank you. Good catch.
Is there a website version of the same information?
Excuse
Is
me?
there a website version of the same information?
The sheriff's office website's pretty good. They have a lot of information on that. They have inmate roster on that website. This would just put it a little bit more user-friendly on the phone. A lot of times you get into those type of regular website, it doesn't really translate well onto your phone or iPad. Under the Registry of Deeds, the primary reductions there were all associated with the position that we were holding if the market turned around. And we saw an increase in recordings. So I think that was a total around $77,000 in totality, benefits and wages. Under the finance office, back of the finance sheet, that was the increase of $55,000 in the Munis contract. Emergency communications, the dispatch center, took $1,500 off from supplies, $5,000 off from training, education, seminars. That was it for that department. And lastly, public health. This was the item that was dependent upon being covered by surplus every year. We had to insert the interpreter services into this line, and that was at $22,000. So that's a snapshot of how the budget has moved in these departments since the budget was first delivered to the committee. And I thought it would be beneficial just to go through and just show you what has been done, pluses or minuses, and have an opportunity for the committee to ask any questions around that. So, thank you.
So, to get a substantial decrease in that 13% is personnel.
It really is.
I appreciate the summary very much. I have a question back on the personnel count document. Supervisor used to have 0, and now we have 3. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was a reorganization of job descriptions within the facilities department over the last 2 years. And so that's why we were second guessing ourselves too. We had to dig into that a little bit. But yes, that is the maintenance supervisor. There is a maintenance supervisor at the courthouse, at the jail, and at our Wyndham facility, which is the dispatch center.
That's a net increase of something, grants have gone down. Significant staff increase there. So between 2 and 4 people, is that right? Facilities?
Yeah, I'm taking a look.
3 custodians.
Well, in 25-26 in totality, we had 27 people, and currently we have 29 outlined.
It's just hard, it's a little hard to read on the emailed version, so maybe 0s, I'm thinking they're 8s, so.
Tim, you got any thoughts on this? This is an enormous increase over anything we've looked at ever, at least in my tenure.
I wish we had a silver bullet to mitigate it,
Yeah.
but it's just not in the cards. It's
I think on the municipal side, we talk 2-3% on a yearly increase. Schools are, different. But, in general, we try to keep things around a 3% increase. The old rule of thumb is 30% in 10 years is what you expect your taxes to go up. I think we see 30% in 3 years in Cumberland with the schools and, a new school.
I think you're not immune. I think if you looked around with other communities, there's a lot of the communities are having much larger annual tax
Yes, yes,
sent to
yeah.
their residents.
I think last year we kind of breathed a sigh of relief that we came in where we were, particularly looking at, closer communities,
A lot has changed since the pandemic.
yeah.
It really has.
But, it is the role of this committee to recommend to the commissioners acceptance, rejections, or modifications. Am I right there, Jim?
Correct.
Well, you picked a good year for me to be chair of this.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Please.
Maybe, Jim, for you? So, just going back to the jail and the fund balance, so is there a specific policy that the county has for what they want to keep in fund balance for the jail? Is the $2 million in there still, is that unassigned fund balance, or is that committed for other things? I just want to better understand what that $2 million is used for, and perhaps is there wiggle room to pull a little bit more from that balance to try and get the tax rate down to something like 10%?
Well, I talk about the fund balance for the jail because that's how our auditors go through the auditing of the jail. That is a DOC requirement. So when we have our audit done, the jail is just not mixed in with the general fund. It is a separate section within the audit. And next year, I think we'll even have a whole separate audit book for the jail because that's what DOC is requiring of us. So with that said, the unassigned fund balance of the 2.3 million that we currently have in as of the FY25 audit is what the auditors have pulled out of the numbers and have assigned that to the jail. We have some fund balance over on the general fund, we have the fund balance over on the jail. And so the jail's fund balance is 2.3 mil. To get it down to 10%, I always use like a rule of thumb, every percent equals about $400,000, maybe a little bit more. So if you're looking at 3%, you're looking at about 1.2 million.
Yeah, maybe I'm doing my math wrong because I'm looking at the budget, maybe I'm looking at the wrong items, but I'm looking at the spreadsheet that had your manager budget where it was 1.9 million for the general county impact and 4.3 million for the jail impact. Is that just the increase in the budget?
That is the increase.
Okay. So it would be, or you said, so it would be, what would the total be to get it down 3%?
I would estimate just off the top of my head about $1.2 million.
That would only have $800,000 in your balance. That's not gonna work.
And the other side of that is that we don't have the luxury anymore of having that federal revenue that will continue to capitalize that. And so once we spend it, it's not getting recapitalized. And so that was why my hesitation over the last couple of weeks is that I kind of started off high saying, well, yeah, we'll put this in, and then I ratcheted down, and then I kind of ratcheted down because the more I thought about what it looks like past July 1st of this year, there's just no more capital going into that unassigned fund balance line anymore.
Is there a minimum amount you're required to hold?
In totality, our unassigned fund balance policy, the minimum is 16.7%. The maximum is 20%. But that is pushing both the general fund balance and the jail fund balance together in totality.
Where are you in totality right now?
I think based on this budget, we are just in maybe high 18s.
Like in the middle of your policy, essentially?
Based on the numbers presented here in this budget.
And that's a percent of your total budget expenses?
Yes.
Even if you went down to your minimum, that still wouldn't quite get us to 10%, but I don't know. I just when it's a tough year like this, like we had a debate like this one year for our budget where we had committed to a certain goal and weighed the pros and cons of using more fund balance, and your policy is a little bit higher than ours in Scarborough, so that's where again I would just be curious for the finance committee, like where the finance committee sits in terms of should we be suggesting more use of fund balance, or does the committee feel to the commissioners for consideration, or does the committee feel what's been proposed is sufficient?
Well, Jim's concerned that there'll be no revenue to replenish it. It certainly needs to be taken into account, but will it be drawn on? I mean, it's sort of a rainy day fund, right? And if 16.7 is statutorily or regulatorily allowed, and this is such a huge increase, I'd be inclined to recommend using more of the unassigned fund balance. Once it's split into the two, will you maintain the 16.7 to 20% separately, one for the jail and one for the county, or the rest of the county?
Could you repeat that, Connie? I'm sorry.
So you're required to keep between 16.7 and 20%, right? And you said it's split now somehow within the budgeting system, but
Yep.
it's going to be virtually a separate audit page in the future. But you just make sure you're within those parameters for each of the two categories.
Correct. Yes.
And now and later it'll be a little just more rigidly divided. So if you went down to 16.7, how much money would that be?
I don't have the answer on the fly.
I don't either, because we hadn't, it depends on what the total expenses are, and we haven't settled on what the total expenses are, so I haven't been able to come up with the percentage.
Oh, fair enough.
So that's why I haven't been able to.
Yeah,
We're dealing with moving numbers, so I can't come up with a percentage, and the jail is lower.
Well, I don't know if we have to recommend a specific percentage, but maybe it's more as we work on our recommendation to move this forward, because it does seem like overall a really good budget, in my opinion, and it seems like for the most part you guys are being quite conservative. It's just this real extenuating circumstance that we're facing this year. So I don't know if I don't know if the commissioner, I would ask the commissioner in the room, do we need to provide you guys a specific recommendation, or can we just suggest that we support this budget, but encourage you guys to have the discussion at the commissioner level for if you want to go further with fund balance?
That would be an appropriate recommendation, if that's what the committee wants to do.
Aaron or Jim or Tim, any thoughts from you guys?
I'm still trying to do math here.
I was laughing earlier and it didn't work out well.
So the total expenditures for the budget, or according to the handout, is it this, and it's also on this, for the jail fund for February, is 25,737,660? Is that right? And so if I do $2.3 million divided by that number, it's just under 9%. It's not in that 16.7 to 20% range for the jail.
Correct. However, you blend the two.
I understand you are blending the two for policy purposes, but for just that institution, do you think of that as the available funds for the rainy day for the jail, or do you think of all of it as the available funds if we have a problem with the jail?
Typically, we would be focused on the rainy day for the jail. Because if things, the county's much bigger than just the jail. If things went crazy and we needed to cover costs across all county departments, that money would be used.
The jail money would be used for the county, or the county money would be used for the
I
jail?
really can't, I don't believe, dip into one to cover the other.
Cannot.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Separate silo.
I think it's DOC has created this separate silo in this jail budget.
So with an institution that has such uncertain costs, I think being at 8.9%, and then we're gonna bring that down by taking out $300,000. I don't know that we wanna dip too much into that.
Can I add some,
I don't favor,
can I add some information here?
Please.
If you are dealing with the legislature and you find out about jail funding, I think it's 3 years now, we have not had any increase in the funding from the jail for the jails. It's been $20 million across the board for all the jails in the state. And then we did get a supplemental of $4 million. They would not add that on as being an automatic. Well, you can see that if you look at what the jails get, originally it was about 20% of our budgets were covered. Now it's down less than 18. And that's really having an impact because DOC controls the jails through mandates. And that's the tussle that the counties have with the state, is that they're supposed to do a certain amount of that. They're supposed to pay 90% of that, which we believe they haven't. But regardless, we end up with a struggling trying to make the requirements, and the prices keep escalating. That's not going to end. That escalation is going to keep continuing. They're going to ask us to do more in the jails. In fact, if you really look at our jails, they're no longer jails, they're the public service of last resort. You don't know what to do with somebody, they bring them to the jail.
We understand from last time that they are hospitals masquerading as jails.
Well,
That's what the sheriff said.
yeah. That's one issue. That's one issue. Then you've got the homeless. They become responsible for that. There's a number of issues, if you begin to look at it, that they're responsible for. So as a commissioner, and I'm only speaking as one, I really hesitate not to have something here because we have to perform. No matter what somebody says, if they're brought to the jail, they need help and we have to perform. The other thing that's beginning to occur, you've heard that trying to have lawyers available to support those that can't afford a lawyer, that funding is going away. And so as a result, those people that are on the private side are dropping out. They're not volunteering to do work. Now that would seem simple at the outset. But what occurs is that all of a sudden these people that have to have representation don't, and so they just start stacking up in our jail and we have to take care of them. So jails are are over 50% of our budget. You know, more than that, and that, to me, that's, puts us in a real bind as far as being able to do the rest of the things that we're trying to do for the citizenry, and yet take care of partly the criminal element, mental health, et cetera. So I struggle with that. There's one other issue that we've just found out about, and I'm not on either side of the issue, but I will tell you it's out there. It's for the health insurance of the state operating people. They're looking at taking the cap off that, so to a point, or they're putting a cap on it, so now that it will be raised up to be cost of living plus 10% is the cap. Well, you've seen what happens to health insurance, and this year our health insurance went up
12%.
12%. So we have things that are external that I know about. God knows what else is out there that's really going to affect these budgets, and they're trying to play with it.
I was just reading the MMA tradesman article this afternoon. I had a couple hours off, and they were talking about self-insurance, which workers' comp is a pool and risk management is a pool. And so a lot of these conversations need to get fleshed out, and one of that is healthcare and our own pool. You know, I think the governor's said, you know, we need to do something about healthcare and initiating that at the state level. And I hear what you're saying, because we go back as a municipality and we look at the school budget coming in at 70% of our tax dollar every year, and we're saying, how can we control our spending to offset the increases that come from the school every year? And it's very frustrating. You know, we've all been there. But I do appreciate the idea of we need to have something in reserve. We can't skin you down to the bone and expect you to operate, and I'm not comfortable leaving you in that position. I think there's too much at stake. There's too much unknown.
Yes. Or it's there, but we don't know how unknown it is. That's
Well, one of the things that's different from municipalities is that we don't have the revenue sources that municipalities have. So the revenue streams are not there for us. And so if we lose the edge on the unassigned fund balance, it's harder for us to capitalize that and bring that back. And so it's one of those things, and that's the crux of the many articles you probably saw over the last 6 months of other counties having issues financially, is because they've attacked these unassigned fund balances to the point that they're zeroed right out or overspent.
Right.
And they're now having issues. They can't get short-term financing, they can't get general obligation bonds, they can't get auditors in to audit them. They're really in some significant financial straits, and they've been passing on significant increases to their taxpayers. And unfortunately, we're finding ourselves in that realm because of the loss of the federal revenue. But, you know, if we do kind of the double whammy of the federal revenue and start looking at significant unassigned fund balance, we could be starting the path down of being one of those counties that are hurting financially.
Question, Jim. If we slip below that 16.7%, wouldn't that also not help our bond rating?
Correct. It also, the policy requires us to develop a game plan on how we're going to increase that back up to at least 16.7%. There's a mechanism in there that we need to develop a game plan on recapitalizing it.
You know, and with the struggle at the state, they've already got one county that's had a representative put in a bill so that they could declare bankruptcy.
Right, right.
Jim, what's the unassigned fund balance for the non-jail part of the budget?
%? 11%? The general fund?
Yeah, somehow we're getting into about 18% between the two fund balances. So I know the jail balance is lower than that, so I assume the rest of it is higher.
I'm trying to think. You have that right handy? It's hard to really pinpoint because we have kind of like the moving sands of the budget. What's the final budget? And so these are just spitballing numbers at this point.
These are funds sitting in accounts right now that haven't been allocated to particular items in this year's budget that will be left over at the end of the year. Is that the idea?
They are unallocated funds, but I also believe they include reserve accounts, do they not?
Some of them do, and it's as of FY '25, because that's when the auditors take the snapshot. So it's how the county was sitting on June 30th, FY '25,
Including capital reserves that may have been spent on projects?
that are assigned to be spent.
Okay, here's what I'm getting at. If, we originally were talking about, could we use some of the jail unassigned fund balance to reduce the increase because of the jail? My question is really getting at, are there other unassigned fund balances that could be used to reduce the overall budget increase this year for the county budget?
There's two buckets of unassigned. There's the jail and there's the general fund.
I understand the jail is going up. Could the general fund be brought down, could the rest of the budget be brought down with general fund that's not assigned to the jail? Or do we need to keep that in there to maintain a certain percentage? That 16.7 to 20%?
I feel we need to fall somewhere in the middle of that 16.7 to 20%. Just
And I just don't know, where exactly are we now? Do we have any wiggle room there to make a little difference in the budget?
We can't cross over the general funds into the jail fund, too.
No, just, I
you're
mean, the rest of the
talking
budget.
using general fund unassigned to offset general fund expenditures.
Right, so we have a 4.67% general county impact before we even get to the jail, right? So that's my question. Could we do something there with unallocated funds? Do we have any flexibility there, or do we need to keep those funds where they are based on current circumstances?
I think that would be more appropriate for us to be able to give a better answer to that. Would be allowing us a couple of days to figure that out when we get into the audit and looking at what we have in terms of this budget. To do it on the fly is kind of scary.
Okay. Don't want you to do anything on the fly.
Yeah, and so, if
But
it's
it also
something
could be-
that, if the committee as a whole wants to make a recommendation, it would be something we would present the finer numbers to the commissioners for their understanding of what that would look like.
Right, so we can consider, the finance committee making a recommendation that county administration look into it as a possibility so that the commissioners can consider it. Any thoughts on that?
I'm comfortable with that. I don't want to get into the jail piece of it, but the general side of it, I think that's a worthy exercise to,
Okay. Anyone online want to weigh in?
I would support that. I mean, I think it's a worthy exercise to figure out, again, where staff thinks there's maybe some wiggle room so that we can try and get that 13.8 down, even if it's just a little bit. It sounds like if your policy is 16.7 to 20 and you're at 18.8, that feels safe. There's probably still a little wiggle room from my perspective.
I'll just say that 18.8 is just a spitball number. That's not a finite number.
right.
It's not from the audit? I thought you said earlier that was from the audit. Or is it because we need to redo the math because we have a different, okay.
Right, the audit is based on FY '25 year end, and we're working on almost a 2 years later budget, FY '27.
county fund balance at the end of FY '25?
It was about 20%. But when you bring in the newer numbers, because what you're doing is that fund balance is not covering expenses from FY '25, it's covering expenses from FY '26 or FY '27, like we're talking. And so those are newer and higher numbers that bring down that 20% down to more like high 18s.
I understand. You have 2.3 million as a dollar balance for the jail fund, and I was just wondering what it was the dollar balance for the county fund at the end of FY '25.
I think it was like 9.8 million, if I remember right.
2.3.
I don't have the audit in front of me, but I think it was like 9.8 million.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow committee members who've spoken so far that it's a useful exercise. And I also appreciate that, Jim, if I understood you correctly, you first thought of taking more and you whittled it down to take less because you felt that would be more prudent.
Correct.
If I've understood it correctly, I appreciate and respect that.
It was one of those things that I wanted to get it down as much as possible because I did not like passing on a higher tax rate. But when you put $500,000 into one budget, you're actually building it out on a step to wean yourself off it over 3 or 4 years. It actually turns into $900,000 or $1 million. And so I kind of had to take a step back. And then we looked at $300,000 first year and stepping it down, and that turned into $600,000. And with such a small number assigned to the unassigned for the jail, and no recapitalization of that, I just didn't feel comfortable. And I thought it would be more appropriate to go in at 200,000 for your review and recommendation than go in higher and then have to shift gears before we get to the commissioners.
So is Karen, is your recommendation that, you know, we're comfortable with what's been done on the jail side, we just wanna look at the unassigned on the county side and see if there's wiggle room there to again bring the total tax rate down?
Yes.
So is that, he asked?
Yes, to do that exercise.
That makes sense.
I haven't had a chance to really weigh in on this, but I would be, after listening to all this and knowing how much Jim and his staff has already worked on this to come up with a responsible approach, I would be also in favor of a recommendation. If there can be found a little bit more, we certainly would like that consideration to be made. I figured out impact on Cape Elizabeth alone, and I'm sure you guys have been thinking about this as well, but it's about 1 mill rate. The increase for our town, I think it's about 1 mill rate for us. So whatever we're going to end up in our budget work for our schools in our town, this increase from instead of coming in at the 5.5 range in the 13, almost 14% range, its impact on our contribution this year will be about an entire mill rate for the town of Cape Elizabeth. So anything we could do, even if it was marginal, if Jim and his team could find a little bit more recommendation there, I think it'd be good. And the only other thing I would suggest is that whatever communication can get out on this, I know we've got a reporter that follows our work pretty closely. Whatever communication can get out between now and when the final decisions are made, I think would be very valuable, so that people aren't kind of get blown away with what's, because all the communication on this is pretty limited so far, but it's going to be a pretty big shock for people once they see it.
Understood.
When you say it's a mill rate, do you mean it's a 1% increase alone on your budget for Cape Elizabeth, or what do you mean by a mill rate?
Well, I think it's about it looks to be just under a $400,000 increase for what we've contributed in the past, and that would have it about that increase added into our budget would add about one mil to what would be added on to everybody's taxes. So 1% basically.
I agree with Tim. The more communication that can get out on this would be great. I know in Scarborough we set an aggressive target to have a 0% mill rate increase, which is pretty impossible, not just with this, but other things that are happening. And so just being able to explain that story to our residents as part of our budget increase this year will be really important, because we don't typically focus on the county very much when we talk about changes year over year, but I think this might be the year we need. It would be nice to have some talking points that all of us could be talking consistently to our residents about in terms of the why.
I think most of us are aware that, you know, municipal employees, county employees, school employees, all have contracts of one sort or another, and they're accustomed to getting, you know, a step and a raise, and that it's incremental, and even if you hold your budget flat, you have to plan for those steps, if you will, that go into that overall mix. And you know, I think you get the right idea there. The idea of us going back to our respective communities, the thing that we have to, you know, trumpet loud and clearly is that we need more consolidation of services to be more effective and more efficient. And we had a meeting last week with Falmouth, Yarmouth, Freeport, Cumberland, and North Yarmouth to talk about shared services. And you know, frankly, nothing was off the table. It was backroom, training drivers, regionalization of firefighting training, police training, all that stuff that can be done more efficiently, and at the end of the day, hopefully save us some money. And I think out of that conversation, some of that is looking to the county to provide some leadership or some help for us to bring that to task. You know, these conversations can't just happen in a little part of Cumberland County and then Bridgeton and Naples and that area up there not be having the same conversations, because taxes are going up for everybody. Anyways, I like what I'm hearing about the move forward with the budget as presented, with the caveat that the unfunded designated, you know, the fund balance of the general part will be re-examined, and can we expect that would be done by the end of the week or the first part of next week, or?
It would have to be done this week because we are meeting with the commissioners in a workshop next Tuesday to work through the budget with them.
Anybody else have any comments?
You know, like I said earlier, I mean, I think it's, despite the circumstances, it's a pretty good budget. The one thing that I know we had talked about, and I don't think it's tied to the budget, and I know, Karen, you had it on your list of things for follow-up, but I know, Jim, you have a slightly different perspective, what you just said about shared services, but in my opinion, it seems like on the dispatch side, perhaps those revenues aren't large enough for those using it, and it would be nice to have the commissioners kind of revisit that and see if there's a different funding formula that they may want to pursue in the future.
If I could add to that, if the concern is that there are some municipalities or communities that are going to have new contracts this year, but more will have contracts in other years, we don't want to create an unfairness. Perhaps the contract this year says, expect a step up when everybody is ready to have new contracts, where you're no longer going to be increased by 3%. It will be higher in some way to reflect the fact that the expenses for dispatch are up much higher. And we're looking at a 15% increase in the department, but only a 3% for the communities being serviced.
And we have taken the comments to heart, and we are working on exploring ways of, one, addressing contracts. Two, we are actually putting together letters to those communities that do not have county dispatch, showing them what type of cost would be associated with them joining the county dispatch center, and what are the services that we provide and the benefits they would be receiving. And so that is another item that we would be just sharing probably the strongest center in the state of Maine. And looking at ways of we can bring more people in, it kind of closes that gap in terms of the financial side of things.
Jeff, I know Yarmouth will be very interested in that letter. Question is, as more communities come into the center, which you've said before has space for them, will there be any economy of scale that reduces prices overall from what people would otherwise be paying or perhaps are paying now?
One of the things that is probably the heaviest lift that we have as part of the equation is that right now, and this dates back to 2006, and this was a carrot to get a lot of communities to join the regional effort. And it was, the county worked with towns who had their own police departments and allowed them to have their own dispatcher in our center. So we have dispatchers that are dispatching for Cumberland, for Gorham, for Wyndham, individuals. The fire side, there's one frequency that does like 5 towns. And so there's, 2 or 3 frequencies, or 2 or 3 dispatchers that are monitoring 5, 6 towns apiece on the fire side. The police side, there's one person. And so what we need to do is we need to start working with towns in sharing frequencies. It's not a popular thing. Every time we bring it up, the police chiefs and the fire chiefs bristle in the meeting. But it is one of those things that we are too small of a region to be having individual frequencies like that. Case in point, New York City, Las Vegas, Miami, the bigger cities, they all have one frequency for hundreds of patrol. And if it calls in on that one frequency, if it's something they need to do, they'll kick them off to a secondary frequency to handle the call. But that one frequency is being monitored by a select number of employees, handling hundreds, if not thousands, of radio traffic. We're dealing with individual towns that have anywhere from maybe 4 to 8 officers on the road on a given shift.
So perhaps part of the incentive for reducing prices regionally is don't have your own dispatcher, share a dispatcher with others.
That is something that we're talking about. It is one of the other things, just yesterday, Melinda and I were talking about going back to we always coined it, it's the Kimball report. They were the original ones that kind of created the roadmap on consolidated dispatch services. And we wanted to go back to them and kind of see what it would cost us to have a refresher on that report, knowing what we know now. We've done a lot of work around the dispatch, radio consoles, new radio system. We now have, we used to have 7 towns in the system, now we have 19 towns. What does it look like now to move us forward? And one of those areas was the fee schedule and whether there was any incentives there. There's been a lot of conversations between Melinda and I on many different facets of the dispatch center because we need to, in a sense, modernize it and pull it out of many of the agreements that date back to 2006. It just cannot move forward in that model anymore.
I'll just add the hammer, one more blow to that nail. And I think I shared it with you. I had a conversation with a Cumberland police officer, and we were talking about shared things, and the topic of dispatch came up, and he said, I am blind to the 2 communities on either side of me, Yarmouth and Falmouth, and he said, we're all the time supporting each other, but we don't have the ability to know what each other's doing, and he said it's a real handicap not knowing what the two other communities are doing. So, just from a practical standpoint, it makes sense.
So the dispatch that we share with Falmouth and Yarmouth, our contract ends at the end of next year, so, and we have to give 9 months' notice, so this really is the year to consider bringing Yarmouth, Falmouth, I think there's another town as well, into the county. So I think there really needs to be a conversation. I've talked to Scott about it, he's open to that conversation.
And the other part of that conversation is, especially in the fire service end of it, it's probably gonna be, I don't know how many volunteers Yarmouth still has or Falmouth still has, but you're probably within less than 10 years, there'll be no such thing as a volunteer fireman.
We hired a whole bunch of.
The requirements are getting so stiff that even towns that have full-time, they still have a call company or something. Those are all gonna disappear. And so county dispatch becomes, I was deputy chief in Wyndham for many years. And when, like Junior said, one dispatcher, if he's talking to 3 different towns with one frequency, it's boom, boom, boom services. In the old days, your dispatcher had to get on the radio and call Falmouth, hey, I need a truck over to East Wyndham, you know? Now with that same dispatcher can dump Falmouth or dump Cumberland, whoever, instantly. Because we just had a house fire, I think, yesterday over near Forest Lake. And, you know, Cumberland's the first one in. They were there, and the Wyndhams were the backup, and even though it was in our town. But that's the kind of reason, and just centralized dispatch makes it so much easier, so much faster.
It's better for all of us.
So much, you know, it's like, we're gonna build a new station in North Wyndham, which county's gonna get involved in part of it. And somebody said when the vote came at town meeting, people complain, well, it's only moving up the road 1.5 miles, not even full mile, I don't think. And the studies show, the town manager got up and he says, the studies show that the average response time will be 1.5 minutes sooner. And the rest was 1.5 minutes is much. And the town manager says, well, if you're having a heart attack, 1.5 minutes is a long time. So, I mean, those are the kinds
Way to
of
get the
things
vote to
you
go
gotta
your
look
way.
at it. But, yeah, regional dispatches, unfortunately, this is one of the few things, we're home rule New Englanders and have been for 200 years or 350 years, but this is one of the places the South has it over us in their county management and county government.
All right,
We have one other item on our recommendation list.
and that is,
The cooperative extension. John, you had weighed in on this, the idea that we, instead of flat funding the Cumberland County Humane Cooperative Extension, we increased the grant by $10,000 to cover salaries at $135K. So,
I think, given the situation we're in, I'm fine just leaving it as staff recommended. Really weird when the camera like zooms into the screen right there.
It's all you.
I mean, $10,000 in the scheme of things is a very small amount. And the difference to cooperative extension is that they will end up dipping into their funds to the point that they no longer have their own reserves. We're talking about, you know, unallocated funds and reserves being part of a healthy budget all around.
If I could just add, I think the work that the corporate extension does is fantastic, and there's nothing against them. However, I have worked with staff to scrub this budget to try to get as many pennies out of this budget as possible and try to push down that tax rate. It just, maybe this year is not the right year to add to that, but I understand what you're saying, but it was just, I think it's just one of those years that adding to this, being an external grant of the county, it's not a county department. We've kind of nicked a couple of key line items in county departments, and I just wanted to express my opinion on it.
It's a very fair point, thank you.
I agree.
Agree that we should leave it as staff recommended.
Yes.
guess I would entertain a motion for adoption of the 26-27 budget with,
With that one recommendation.
with the caveat that the county manager will look at the undesignated fund balance of the general portion of the budget, report back to the committee before the end of the week.
And is there also a recommendation regarding dispatch contracts? Existing contracts with communities that are up this year? Or is it, we're just gonna leave that out of the budget discussion for now?
I'd leave it out.
I can share with you, we are talking amongst ourselves and preparing. It is a tough year because we had the majority of the dispatch contracts go through last year, so they're already into their 3-year contract. We have a small handful this year, and so we're looking at it though, just to see whether there's some parity that we can bring together.
All right, yes, so with that one recommendation, I would second the motion.
Motion's been made, and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Oh, I just have a question where, the team is meeting with the commissioners next week. Do they really get the time to report back to us? Or is it simply that they'll be bringing, additional potential savings to the commissioner's attention when they meet next week?
It may be best if I report back to the committee upon meeting with the commissioners, after the meeting with the commissioners and telling you where the commissioners went. Unless having that number in terms of unassigned fund balance is something that you want by Friday afternoon.
No, I think we can wait.
And I think we've sent our message.
Yes.
I appreciate through the commissioners being present to hear our concerns. And, you will do what you do anyway. So at least you've heard, our thoughts on where maybe there could be some savings or budget percent savings. And I defer to the process that'll bring that information to you.
We're not pushing for adoption until March, are we? Is that where we're at now?
Correct. We can have that, it's such a tight turnaround here with Tuesday to Tuesday that Patty and I talked today that it will be a discussion that we'll probably bring up at the next week's meeting in terms of, do we have a special meeting or do we just come to a conclusion that this is a locked budget and we'll just hold it until March? But in the meantime, we'll let all the communities know where that percentage increase was. That's the most important, is let the towns know so that they can bake it into their budgets and get their workshops going and all, so.
Yeah, we're in budget season, so we appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'd be comfortable with that, Jim.
Well, can it be, it doesn't have to be an exact number. Can it be a window? You know,
I think after the workshop on next Tuesday, we should have a pinned down number that would be solid enough that we can let the towns know.
I'm not against that.
Yeah, there's very few moving parts at this point. I think we've trapped them all, hopefully. Hopefully nothing springs up on us, much like a munis increase. But that caught me off guard. I wasn't happy after that. But anyways, they'll probably turn off our system after watching this video. But I think after Tuesday will be good, and we'll just be buying ourselves time to the commissioner meeting in March, if that's the route the commissioners want to go.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Everyone,
I learned it, just slow. All those in favor?
oh, I gotta do roll call. Tim,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
John, Karen,
Yes.
Bob? Show it 5-0.
Before you adjourn, I just wanted to point to your attention to the pamphlet that you have in front of you. I'm sorry, folks who are online, I'll send it to you by email. But there was a couple of comments made at one of the first finance committee meetings where you were saying, we don't know, what does Cumberland County do for us, right? I mean, going through all the different departments. And so we kind of tried to draft a document that summarizes a little bit about who we are as a county and what kinds of departments we have, what kind of operations we have. And I think it might pair well with any kind of communications going forth to your constituents and your other council members, select board members on, you know, what it is that you're funding when you have those discussions. So I'm sure Jim will have much more to add to it, but maybe this will be a good starting point. So if you have any comments or thoughts about it, definitely let us know and we can modify it if needed.
Yep, excellent.
Is there any further business to be conducted? Seeing none, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. And a roll call vote.
Tim?
Yes.
Connie? John?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Just before everyone stops, I just want to take a second and thank you all for the time commitment over the last 2.5 months. We greatly appreciate it. We know that you have other meetings in your communities that you need to pay attention to, and that's your first priority. But to join us in working through a budget and learning about the county and the inner workings of the county it means a lot to us. So I want to just say thank you for your time and your effort.
We do appreciate it.
And the input.
Been our pleasure, my pleasure, and it's been great to get to know all of you and to get a chance to work with all of you.
I've learned a lot that I'm gonna take back to my town.